We're of the club that's made for you and me. M-I-C-K-E-Y-M-O-U-S-E. I had to take myself to Disney World. Actually, I chose that because last week, well, one, I chose it because I'm really missing Disney, guys. I'm struggling. Check in on your friends who are used to going to Disney a lot and haven't been able to in a long time because we're not doing okay. I'm just kidding. I chose this background because last week we read about Disneyland and how it wasn't such a phenomenal first day. And we were reading about that to learn about identifying what our topic is and what our supporting detail is when we're given the main idea. This week, we are moving on. We are not going to be given the main idea anymore. So last week, you were given the main idea. There's sometimes that you're going to pick up a piece of paper and it's only a paragraph with no title, or there's no main idea given to you. So you have to figure out what it is. So this week, that's what you're going to be practicing. You're going to practice. Now, we've already done, we are professionals at identifying the topic of what we're reading and identifying supporting details, like facts that we've learned, but we've never had to identify the main idea. So this week, you have to do all three of those. So we're pros at the first two. Now we've got to use those skills or our schema that we already know on how to do those two things and help us identify what the main idea is. So let's practice. All right, so today we're going to practice the next step of our main idea, of identifying main idea. So we started with where sometimes you'll read an article and the actual article, oftentimes like in the newspaper, the title of the article will tell you what the main idea is. But that's not always the case. Sometimes you read something without a title. Sometimes the title is just the topic. Sometimes the title is just something to get your attention and isn't really much of anything. So now we've got to figure out, what do we do when the title doesn't tell us the main idea? So we're going to work on the strategy, and you'll see it written up here. It says, good readers think about the examples and details in a text to understand the main idea. And honestly, we practiced this last week, but now we just have to find the main idea in addition to the topic and supporting details. So this is the graphic organizer that we're going to use. We've got three different sections here, really. So we've got what is the main topic. So we're going to figure out what our topic is by seeing what word is said a lot or synonyms of the same words. And then what important details or examples are given about the main topic. And we're going to write them in each of these boxes that we see here. And then what do the details and examples help you understand or believe about the topic? So that's where we'll fill in what our this is just another way of saying main idea. So that's where we're going to write in what we believe our main idea is. So let's do some practice with the passage. All right, here's our passage. So we have, let me see here. We've got this passage we're going to read. And first we're going to try to figure out what the topic is. So the first time you read it, try to figure out what the topic is. Now let me get rid of those. There we go. All right, so it says, ants of all kinds are constantly tunneling through the soil. This recycles nutrients and helps deliver air to the soil, which is crucial for its health. These things, in turn, help the growth of plants that humans eat. Meanwhile, those plants are fertilized by bees through the process of pollination. By delivering pollen between plants, bees are a key contributor to the crops that humans consume. There's also the role of insectivorous bats. These are bats that consume insects. Over 70,000 of bats fit this description. These bats feed on insects that are harmful to plant life. This means that plants, human crops included, can grow big and strong with less of a need for harmful pesticides. All right, so let's try to identify what our topic is. As I was reading, I noticed at first I read a lot about insects. So we've got ants. And anytime that it says anything about insects, I'm going to circle it. So meanwhile, these plants are fertilized by bees, the process of pollination. By delivering pollen between plants, bees are a key contributor to the crops that humans consume. There's also the role of insectivorous bats. Wait a minute, bats aren't an insect. So what do bats and bees and ants have in common? Okay, they're not all bats Well, I would say they fly, but ants don't fly. I know some do, but what if I just thought about animals? So what if I just said our topic was animals? Let's see. So insectivorous bats, 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 insects, let's see, can grow, humans, I mean, really, we're animals. All right, so they're set in there a lot. So I would say that our topic is probably animals. So let's go to our next board. And let's fill that in on our, let me erase these circles here, on our what is our topic. So I'm just going to put animals. Now I've got to figure out what important details or examples are given about the main topic. So about these animals. What did the author teach me about these animals? So let's see what we have here. Let's go figure out what we learned about all of these different animals. So when I look, ants of all kinds are constantly, so I'm going to read it a third time, or a second time, I guess. And now I'm going to try to figure out what am I learning. So I circled ants, bats, and bees. What am I learning about ants, bats, and bees? So ants of all kinds are constantly tunneling through the soil. This recycles nutrients and helps deliver air to the soil, which is crucial for its health. These things in turn help the growth of plants that humans eat. Meanwhile, those plants are fertilized by bees through the process of pollination. By delivering pollen between plants, bees are a key contributor to the crops that humans consume. There's also the role of insectivorous bats. These are bats that consume insects. Over 70% of bats fit this description. These bats feed on insects that are harmful to plant life. This means that plants, human crops included, can grow big and strong with less of a need for harmful pesticides. All right, so as I was reading, I noticed something in common between all three. So let's first look at the ants. So ants are constantly tunneling through soil. This recycles nutrients and helps deliver air to the soil, which is crucial for its health. And that helps the growth of plants that humans need. So that's what I learned about ants. When they dig through the soil, that's actually helping plants. Meanwhile, these plants are fertilized by bees through a process of pollination. By delivering pollen between plants, bees are a key contributor to the crops that humans consume. So bees deliver pollen, which also helps crops grow. There's also the role of insectivorous bats. These are bats that consume insects. Over 70% of bats fit this description. These bats feed on insects that are harmful to plant life. This means that plants, human crops included, can grow big and strong with less of a need for harmful pesticides. So these bats feed on insects that are harmful to plant life, which means plants can grow big and strong with less need of pesticides. So as I was reading this, I noticed that all three of these things had something in common. But let's fill out these facts in our graphic organizer. So first, I had, let me put our animals back up here. Here was our topic. So first I had ants dig through soil, which helps the plants grow. And then I'm going to go back to my passage because I got to remember what they say about bees. So, oops, that's not what I meant to do. So let's see here what I underlined about bees. So I had, by delivering pollen between plants, bees are a key contributor to the crops that humans consume. So I'm going to put on my graphic organizer that bees deliver pollen to plants that helps crops grow. All right, so let's go back to where I was, back to my graphic organizer. Oops, and let's add that to my second box. So I have bees pollinate plants and help crops grow. All right, so now let's see if we can find another fact about our plants. So I know I read about ants, bats, and then my next one was the insectivorous bats, I think is what they were called. So the insectivorous bats, let's see, it says bats feed on insects that are harmful to plant life, which means that plants can grow big and strong with less need for harmful pesticides. All right, so let's go back here and add that into our graphic organizer. So I have that bats eat plants, so bats eat, I'm sorry, not eat plants, eat insects that are harmful to plants, which helps them grow. I know my handwriting is atrocious on here, but that's okay. So I have a fourth box here. Now, there's nothing in that. There wasn't a fourth type of animal in there. So I only needed to fill in 3, but sometimes when your passages are longer, you need a little more than that. So I have ants dig soil, which helps plants grow. Bees pollinate plants and helps crops grow. Bats eat insects that are harmful to plants, which helps them grow. So what details and examples help us understand or believe about the topic? So basically here, remember, what is our main idea? What do all of these things have in common? Well, one, I know that they're all animals. And what do they all do? So when I read each of these, I see that they all help crops grow. So I would say that different animals they contribute or they help. So contribute or help plants or crops, because it talked about plants and crops, grow. That's our main idea for that passage. So as I was reading, I learned that ants, bees, and bats all in some way or another help plants grow. So now it's going to be your turn. Now you're going to have an assignment, and this sample one will be up there for you to see, but now you're going to read a passage, and I believe it's about television. You're going to read a passage that you're going to have to fill out the same graphic organizer for. You got to figure out what the topic is. You have to figure out what you learned, and then you've got to figure out what all of the facts that you learned, what they have in common, just like we did. And then you're going to turn that in.